Today we talk to Ade Adepitan, the author of the Cyborg Cat series, and have a reading from the latest book.
Oh, and on today's video, I'm very, very excited. It's a very special one because we are going to be chatting to the fantastic author of Cyborg Cat, and this new edition is And the Night Spider. It is, of course, Ade Adepitan, and he is joining me now. Hello, Ade.
Hey, Connie, how are you?
I'm good. It's so good to have you. This is the first time I've ever had a guest, so I'm very honoured and privileged indeed. How's lockdown treating you, can I ask?
Am I your first guest?
Yes.
Wow, privilege. No, to you. It's props back to you. This is where, I mean, you're saying how's lockdown? I think this has become the new normal. This is how I'm communicating with everybody. It's just weird, isn't it?
It's so surreal. Even walking down the street, if you see people with a mask on, it feels like we're in some futuristic film or something, doesn't it?
Dystopian world where everything has gone wrong. It's some alternate universe. It's nuts. It's either that or your BO is really humming, and that's why they've covered up their faces.
Yeah.
I frantically had to spend like 2 days trying to tidy the house up because it was such. I mean, look, normally the house is a mess, but in lockdown mode, when we're all at home all the time, the house is. I mean, I looked at it and I thought, this is a disgrace.
It's very tidy from here, I have to say. There's no mess on the floor at all behind you. So well done.
It's tactical placement of the camera.
Strategic.
If you looked that way, then you'd be, oh my days, what's going on?
Clever. We're allowed to be messy in lockdown because we know no one's coming around. Let's talk a bit about your books, Ade, because it's a brilliant concept, the Cyborg Cat. What inspired you to get writing in the first place?
Initially, I was going to write an autobiography. And the only reason why I was going to write the autobiography is because I've done so many things in my life. I've traveled all over the world. I've had 2 or 3 different careers. And people, I was meeting up with old friends, and they were saying, remember when you did this? Remember when you did that? And I was realizing that I was starting to forget some of these crazy things and adventures that I'd been on. And I was thinking, you know what, maybe I should put it down. So I decided to write a chapter, send it out to a few publishers to see whether there was any interest. And my publisher came back to me, and they were like, we really like what you've written, but we also think it would work really well if you sort of thought about a children's book idea as well, because your story is inspiring. I was kind of like, okay, I've never written for children's books, and it's a really, I think it was a real difficult market, you know, because you've got a lot of responsibility when you're writing for children. You know, I remember children's books when I was growing up, they played a huge part in my life. And I didn't want to mess that up with my rubbish writing. Yeah, I thought, I've got to get this right. So initially I was a little bit reluctant to do it, but I went away and wrote a few chapters, sent it back to them, and they really liked it, and they thought it translated really well. And it was kind of an amalgamation of my life story, my autobiography, very loose. And it was that melded together with my crazy imagination. And that's how the Cyborg Cat was kind of born.
Sounds like the perfect combination. So tell us, in a nutshell, a little bit about your interesting, crazy life, because you have experienced a lot.
Yeah, I suppose you could say that. So I was born in Lagos, Nigeria. And when I was 15 months old, I contracted polio, which is a waterborne virus that affects your spinal cord. Had a massive impact on me. It meant that I was unable to use my left leg, and it affected my left arm. So it causes a certain amount of paralysis in parts of your body. For me, it was mainly the left side of my body. I was fortunate because for the real severe cases of polio, it also affects your lungs, and you have to be put on, they're put on respirators and breathing respirators. But I didn't, my level of polio wasn't that severe. But it also meant that my parents decided very quickly that life in Nigeria was going to be really tough for me and really difficult having a disabled child. And so we moved from Nigeria to London. My parents used all of their savings, borrowed from friends and family, and relocated to London. And when I came over to London, I basically had to start afresh. I mean, I was only 3 years old, 4 years old, but when I started school, I had a very strong Nigerian accent. I spoke like this. Yoruba was my first language. I did not really speak English that well. So I was trying to fit in that way. Both of my parents were extremely flamboyant. Nigerians and people in general are quite flamboyant, outgoing people. And for my first day of school, my mum decided that that the best thing that I should wear to make a mark, and because she thought it would be the smartest thing for me to wear, is she got me a pink checkered suit, flared suit with a bow tie, and she combed my hair into a massive afro. So I had a lot of things to contend with growing up in the UK in the late 70s, early 80s. I was one of the few black kids in my school. I was the only kid with a disability in my school. And on top of that, I turned up to school in a pink suit and a bow tie. And a lot of the book draws upon those early experiences. You know, I was really inspired when I was growing up by TV shows like The Wonder Years, and also like Malcolm in the Middle, Everybody Hates Chris, those type of shows, and also Adrian Mole, age 13 and 3/4. And so I kind of drew upon those sort of books and those ideas and amalgamated it with my life story, talking about me growing up at school, trying to make friends, trying to fit in because I was so different. And out of these ideas came the idea of the Cyborg Cat, you know, the superhero, the disabled superhero who was different.
Yes, absolutely. And you failed to mention, Ade, because you're so not blowing your own trumpet, that you're also a Paralympian, which is just amazing. A TV presenter, a Paralympian, all these things the little boy in the checkered suit has done good. Can you tell us just quickly how that came about?
Oh yeah, the Paralympics, that thing. Well, when I was, I mean, there are little bits of that story coming up in the Cyborg Cat series. You know, young Ade is dreaming, or well, initially he wants to be a footballer. He wants to play football for England. But then he discovers wheelchair basketball, and then that becomes a dream. And for me, when I was about 12, 13, I was spotted by some physiotherapists as I was being raced through the streets in a Tesco shopping trolley. They knew I had a disability because they'd heard about me going to this mainstream school. They did a lot of work with disabled kids. They ran a sports club called the Newham Rollers, and they asked me if I would swap my Tesco shopping trolley that my mates were racing me about in, and the reason why I was in that shopping trolley is because I couldn't keep up with them on my calipers, and they asked me if I would swap that for a wheelchair. Initially, I was like, no way, you know, because there was a lot of stigma around getting into wheelchairs. And I walked on calipers, and even though I walked on calipers, and I looked different when I was walking on calipers, using a wheelchair for me was, I just think at the time when I was about 11 or 12, it was just an absolute no-no. I thought wheelchairs are not cool. Being in a wheelchair is rubbish. I'm going to stand out. People are going to pick on me. They're going to laugh at me and all of that. But then they took me to a place called Stoke Mandeville, where I saw some members of the Great Britain wheelchair basketball team. And that was where it all changed for me.
Wow.
Yeah, these guys were incredible athletes doing incredible things. And from that day on, I think I was about 13, my dream became to become a Paralympian and to compete at the Paralympics. And it took the best part of 15 years. I competed at the Sydney 2000 Paralympics for the first time, and then went on to win a medal at the 2004 Paralympics and won a whole load of other medals in other stuff. But that's another lifetime away. I feel so old when you talk about basketball.
But it's all brilliant inspiration for the books. I mean, you have so many stories to tell. It's fantastic. And I should point out, actually, that me and Ade are both ambassadors for End Polio Now. And we're
Yes.
nearly on the cusp, aren't we, Ade, of ending the global disease forever, which is amazing.
And it's so important because children, it's a disease that we can eradicate, and kids all over the world should be able to grow up without being in fear of catching this horrible disease.
Absolutely. And I should point out that Ade's book, Cyborg Cat and the Night Spider, gives proceeds to children in need, another really good cause. Chapter 1, Boing Boing Leopards and Bum Bum Bees. Incredible. Cyborg Cat is taking his game to superhuman levels. How does he do it? My goalkeeping that day was pretty good, if I do say so myself. The Parsons Road gang was playing football after school. I was in goal against Dexter, Melody, Shed and Brian. And I'd saved just about every one of their shots. Maybe it was because I was in a really good mood. We can see a pretty good mood on that face there. We just found out that we were going on a school trip to a safari park, or perhaps my cyborg skills were growing. Either way, I was on blistering form. Your super cyborg leg was practically glowing when you made that last save, Dexter shouted, wide-eyed and out of breath. I'm telling you, the caliper is the source of his powers, Brian said, seriously. The gang looked in awe at the metal scaffolding surrounding my left leg. I'd contracted polio in Nigeria when I was little, which made my leg weak, so it was there to help me walk. But it had earned me the nickname of Cyborg Cat amongst my friends because I could do cool moves no one ever expected. The element of surprise was my secret weapon on the football pitch. Guys, I said, feeling a little awkward, I'm still here, you know. I can actually hear what you're saying. Sorry, Ade, but we're never going to score against you today, said Shed. I reckon even a team of animals from the safari park wouldn't be able to get a goal past the Cyborg Cat. That got me thinking. What a pass by Lenny Lion, straight to Eric Elephant, who controls the ball and backheels it to Terry Tiger. Terry beats one beast, beats two, beats a third and sends in a beautiful cross. Giraffe Jerry out jumps the defenders and heads it perfectly. It must be a goal, surely. But no, Cyborg Cat launches himself through the air, stretches out and somehow tips the ball over the bar. How did he do that? He must have superpowers. Dexter was talking as I came out of my daydream. I've never been to a safari park before.
It's going to be amazing, he said excitedly. Melody picked up the ball and we all started heading back to Parsons Road. Yeah.
Can't wait. This could be the Parson Road gang's greatest adventure ever, chipped in Brian. I'm going to research all the animals and make notes on them with drawings, diagrams and charts and everything. I looked at Shed and shook my head. Sometimes it seemed as if Brian was more interested in making the notes than the actual thing he was making notes about. I really hope we see the equus quagga, Brian went on, seemingly in a world of his own. And the odd toad undulate from the well-known Rhinoceroidae family. And I reckon we'll see the ferocious Panthera leo. Everyone looked at Brian strangely. You're speaking Brian-brainarium again, said Melody with a sigh. This was the name Melody had given to the language Brian spoke when he got super excited about something. Brainarium. I think it's a melody, I said. At least that's what my dad said when he heard it. I know Latin, Dexter replied confidently. My cousin used to live there. It's the stop after Stratford on the Central line. That's Leighton, Dex, I replied, trying not to laugh. Brian gave Melody a look, then turned to the rest of us, shaking his head. I was talking about the animals in the safari park. Equus quagga is also known as the zebra. Rhinoceroidae is the rhino, and Panthera leo is the lion. Oh, well, ovs, shouted Dexter. Why didn't you just say that in the first place? I can do all of them. He dropped onto all fours and gave us his best impressions of a zebra, rhino, and lion, as well as a giraffe and a warthog. apparently. They all just seemed to involve crawling and grunting, but he did look funny doing it. Brian wasn't impressed. Your warthog is exactly the same as your giraffe, he said, which is exactly the same as your zebra, lion, and rhino. No, it isn't, objected Dexter, demonstrating again for Brian's benefit. Afraid it is, Dex, said Shed. Hey, Ade, tell Dexter what the difference between a warthog and a giraffe is. Why would Shed think I knew? I looked at him and made a face that I hoped said, eh? What on earth are you talking about, mate? Shed got it and replied, well, you must be an expert because you'll have seen them all in Africa when you lived there, Ade. Yeah, said Brian. He's got a point. You probably know loads of cool stuff that I could add to my research. I looked at my friends. They were the best mates anyone could ever have, but sometimes they could be really dense. I mean, really, really dense. Even Brian, so much so that I was going to tell them that I was hardly an expert and I knew as much about animals as they all did about flower arranging. I stopped. I grinned to myself. This was the perfect opportunity for a wind-up. I'm an expert, in fact, I said, holding my head up high and trying to look as expertly expert as I could. My village in Nigeria was always full of animals. There were two-headed emus and giant spotted flying camels all over the place. They were practically my pets. By the time I'd finished describing these mystical beasts, I was in full David Attenborough mode. Dexter's eyes were about as big as snooker balls, and his mouth had opened so wide in amazement at the thought of these incredible animals that I'm sure I caught a glimpse of gooey wagon wheel he'd scoffed for lunch. Sounds tasty. I desperately tried to keep a straight face as I carried on. Oh, and my personal favourite are the bum bees. They're half bee and half bottom. They feed exclusively on baked beans. You always know when they're near because of the terrible stench and the sound. Bum bees, said Dexter quizzically. What sound do they make? I leant over in his direction and pursed my lips together and blew a huge raspberry in his ear. They're basically like a swarm of giant flying farts, I said when I was all raspberried out. Just a whiff of their odour is enough to kill a fully grown human. Brian and Melody obviously weren't fooled, and Shed shook his head with amusement. But Dexter bought it, hook, line, and sinker. Two-headed emus, giant spotted flying camels, and bum bees. I can't wait to see them, he shouted. Brian and Shed fell about laughing. Even Melody was giggling. What is it? Dex, I said, if you ever see a bum bee or a giant flying camel, I'm taking you straight to the doctor. Dexter looked cross when he'd realised he'd been teased. Yeah, well, if I see a night spider, he said defiantly. That really wasn't what I'd expected him to say. Dexter was pointing to a wall with the coolest graffiti I'd ever seen. We all looked up at it. There was a splash of colourful zigzags interspersed with googly eyes and sparkly diamonds, as you can see there. Pretty cool graffiti, eh? At the bottom, the artist had signed it Night Spider. The N and the S were much bigger and brighter than the other letters, so they really stood out. Wow, cool, said Melody. Amazing, I agreed. I wonder who this Night Spider is. My question was greeted by silence. The gang just stared at the wall, blown away by Night Spider's work. But there was something about the graffiti that made me feel weird and uneasy, that made me feel strange. I looked at the others. They were all acting normally, pointing out their favourite bits to each other. But something odd was happening to me. Suddenly, I could feel my caliper begin to vibrate. What's happening? I muttered under my breath. The rest of the gang didn't seem to notice. I looked back at the graffiti and the colours started swirling around me like a rainbow. What is going to happen next? You'll have to read the book to find out. Ade, gripping stuff. That Casper is your superhero power or what? That is an awesome book. If you want to find out more, make sure you get it. It's Cyborg Cat and the Night Spider, and bonus, all the proceeds go to children in need. Did I do okay? Did I do your book justice?
You're amazing, absolutely amazing. I was wondering how you were going to handle the rhinoceros tarde, or the odd-toed ungulate.
Rhinoceros tarde, is that it? Okay.
Yes. I had to do a bit of research for all of that to find the Latin names, because Brian is the brains of the team. So he always goes too deep into everything and comes out with these long words and confuses everybody. And Dexter, as you can see, is the Joker. So yeah, it was brilliant. I really enjoyed that. It's the first time I've heard someone else read it. It was nice.
Isn't it? Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it as well. And they're such a great gang and their adventures are so fun. So make sure you check it out. But we're just about out of time. Ade, you have been so entertaining and enlightening. Thank you so much. And thank you for letting me read your book. But now, until next time, from me and Ade, it's bye.
See you later.
Please subscribe and spread the word.